before we got into this project, I didn't really know what Matthew did. I just knew he had something to do with a water treatment plant in Poughkeepsie. It's actually better than that. Matthew, what's your job? Tell us what you do.
All right. Well, currently I'm the Chief Water Plant Operator for the City of Poughkeepsie's water treatment facility. It is the Poughkeepsie's joint water treatment facility for both the city and the town of Poughkeepsie. And my function there serves, one, to run an environmental laboratory, acting as the lab director and also as the chief operator for operations of the facility. Poughkeepsie was the first treatment facility in North America to use slow sand filtration, and they adopted that mode of treatment in about 1869, which the treatment plant was started to be built, and then in 1872 was completed.
How'd they get the sand, or where'd they get it from?
Actually, we have the old operations reports, and they used to get barges of sand from Cape May, New Jersey.
Okay.
They would come up the river, and they would dock at our current low-lift pump station, and then they would offload it by, I guess, wheelbarrow, manpower. And they would physically go in and every year clean out the filters, just as we're learning we need to do with our bag filtration. And they would replace a certain amount of the media, and they'd bring the filter back online. And what was really interesting is they were making the connection. 1907, we have the original data set from the first lab director, and he was doing testing of coliform bacteria, primarily E. coli, before and after filtration. And what's interesting is he was calling it Bacillus coli, which is about 50 years prior to Escherichia naming it E. coli. So he didn't know exactly what it was, but he was quantifying a bacterium. And what's interesting is he was seeing 90 to 99% removal of bacteria through the filter. And in about 1970, the EPA issued a 2-log reduction, which is about 90% reduction of bacterium due to filtration. So he was proving something that the EPA then came out in about 7 years later and said, this is what you'll get if you treat water with this type of treatment facility.
All right, so that tells us two things. Number one, you don't need specialized magical sand, really sand from any beach anywhere.
Any beach anywhere, right.
And this device, or this process anyway, it doesn't just remove solids from water, it removes some sort of bacteria. Bacteriae?
Bacterium, viruses, protozoan, colloidal particles, inert particles, whether it be organic or inorganic. And it's physically a barrier by which the large particles cannot break through, okay? And we've discussed this, and I know you like this word, the Schmutzdecke.
That's right.
Is a layer that literally is formed on top of the sand, and the sand physically acts like a support structure for this Schmutzdecke, which will actually harbor beneficial bacterium and protozoan and viruses, which will then consume or entrap harmful bacterium.
And those are the kind of bacterium that would cause diarrhea. Malaria,
cholera, dysentery. So yeah, you know, really quickly, this country could become a third world country if we lost our filtration abilities and we didn't have what we have in Poughkeepsie and then throughout the rest of the country.
And conversely, if places like Ghana and Guatemala had basic water treatment, couldn't they raise themselves up?
They really could, because, you know, what's interesting is two things. Is one, the rate of infection would decrease, which just makes sense. And then two, if you have a centralized water system, the villagers in some remote areas won't have to spend a large portion of a day hunting down water and carrying it, and they can go on and get educated. They can learn a specific trade to help pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, so to speak.
That's great. That's
great.
So
that's kind of when you told me about this, that's what kind of got me into it, is that, you know, the old proverb is teach a man to fish and you can feed him for a lifetime. So give somebody the ability to treat their own water at a really easy way, and see what happens.
That's great.
Experiment.
Well, how do we prove that it works? I mean, we know that it works. We built a couple of these things. How do we prove to